Everyone laughed at Aston Martin in the opening races of 2026. The vibrations, the battery failures, Alonso taking his hands off the wheel in China, a car that could not complete a full race distance, a Works-Honda partnership that looked like the worst decision in modern Formula One. And then something strange happened in Miami. Both cars finished sprint and Grand Prix distance. No catastrophic failures, no early retirements from mechanical causes. And instead of celebrating Orihara, Honda's lead trackside engineer specifically highlighted energy management and drivability as the next development targets. Not lap time, not power, energy management. That choice of words is not accidental. In Formula One, teams rarely reveal their true priority unless they believe the previous problem is already solved. Reliability was phase 1. It is done. What comes next is phase 2. And phase 2 is where this story gets genuinely interesting. Because what Honda may have learned during those 3 disastrous opening races, in ways that Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull have not yet been able to, could be worth significantly more than any aerodynamic upgrade or engine token. And the rest of Formula One may have just helped them get there. The vibration story is the one that dominated the headlines, and for good reason. Alonso losing sensation in his hands and feet after 30 laps. Batteries failing because the oscillation frequencies were destroying internal components. A car left behind in Japan for emergency investigation, while the rest of the field flew to the next race. By any measure, that was a crisis. But here is what nobody reported alongside that crisis. The AMR26's catastrophic weakness in high-speed corners, reportedly losing up to 12 miles per hour compared to rivals through certain turns, was not just destroying lap time, it was accidentally creating something valuable. When a car attacks a high-speed corner aggressively, the driver relies heavily on electrical deployment to stabilize acceleration zones and maintain corner exit momentum. That consumes harvested energy rapidly. The battery drains faster. The cliff edge behavior that has plagued every team in 2026 hits harder. The AMR26 cannot attack high-speed corners aggressively. The chassis is not stable enough. The drivers enter slower and exit with reduced aggression. Normally, that is a disaster. Under the 2026 hybrid system, it also means the battery state remains more stable across the lap. While Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull were desperately juggling deployment compromises at the limit of their performance window, Honda was receiving something they desperately needed: clean data from a simplified operating environment where the variables are fewer, the system behavior is clearer, and the weaknesses are easier to identify. That is not a consolation prize. In engineering terms, that is a development advantage. After Miami, Orihara did not talk about lap time. He did not talk about closing the gap to the front of the grid. He specifically said energy management and drivability were the next development targets. That is worth sitting with for a moment. This is Honda's lead trackside engineer speaking after the first race weekend where both cars finished without catastrophic failures. The natural instinct after surviving a crisis is to celebrate the survival. Orihara did not do that. He moved straight to the next problem, which tells you the previous problem. Reliability is genuinely solved in his mind. Not managed, not contained, solved. The shift to energy management as the priority is significant because of what it reveals about Honda's understanding of the 2026 regulations. Energy management is not a simple problem to announce as a target. It requires stable, clean, repeatable data from the car before you can even begin to optimize it meaningfully. You cannot map deployment strategies accurately if the car is shaking so violently that the sensor readings are corrupted, which is exactly what was happening to Honda in the first 3 races. The vibration problem was not just uncomfortable for the drivers, it was distorting the telemetry. Distorted telemetry corrupts deployment calibration. Corrupted calibration destroys predictive energy mapping. Honda could not build accurate simulation models because the data coming from the car was unreliable. Miami changed that, and now, with clean telemetry, Honda can start doing what every manufacturer needs to do under these regulations. Understand at a deep level how the energy system behaves in real racing conditions. That understanding is not something you can buy. You have to earn it on track. Aston Martin's painful 2026 has been the price Honda paid for it. If this kind of technical breakdown is what you come here for, you already know where to find more of it. The development philosophy is relentless repetition rather than conservative refinement. Give them 230 additional dyno hours, $11 million in extra budget, and a chassis that has been providing clean data from a simplified operating window, and you have given Honda exactly what they need to accelerate that process. The teams that voted for the ADU revisions may have just handed Honda the time and resources to become genuinely competitive far faster than anyone expects. Red Bull did it before. They built Honda into a championship-winning engine. Now, Aston Martin inherits that rebuilt Honda DNA. And this time, Newey is in the building. Newey's arrival at Aston Martin changes the entire calculus of this story. Not immediately. The AMR 26 is not his car. He has been clear about that. The 2026 machine was already deep into development when he joined, and his influence will be most visible from 2027 onward. But here's why that timeline is relevant to the Honda story specifically. By the time Newey begins designing around the Honda power unit in earnest, Honda will have had a full season of real-world data from a simplified operating environment. They will understand how the energy system behaves under race conditions in a way that was impossible to learn in a wind tunnel or on a dyno. They will have used their additional ADU hours to iterate on the deployment mapping, the harvesting calibration, the integration between power unit and chassis. The integration is the key word. A customer-engine relationship limits how deeply the chassis and power unit departments can co-develop architecture. Ferrari use their own engine but supply customers. Mercedes do the same. The fundamental decisions about how the power unit interacts with the chassis are constrained by the need to make the design work for multiple different cars. Honda and Aston Martin have no such constraint. They are building one ecosystem, one car, one power unit, one integration target. Newey has historically obsessed over rear packaging efficiency and airflow stability around the power unit. Now, imagine Newey eventually designing a car around a Honda power unit whose energy behavior is already deeply understood from months of painful real-world testing. A power unit that Honda has been iterating on with 230 additional hours of dyno time and $11 million of extra budget. That combination has happened before. It produced 4 consecutive world championships. Red Bull created it, and Aston Martin may be about to inherit it. Here is the uncomfortable part. Red Bull spent years building Honda into a championship-winning engine manufacturer. That partnership produced 4 consecutive world titles. Then they split. Honda went to Aston Martin, and now Aston Martin, with Newey arriving, full factory integration, 230 additional dyno hours, and $11 million of regulatory support, is quietly building the same ecosystem that made Red Bull untouchable between 2021 and 2024. Red Bull may have created their own future rival, and the teams that voted for the ADU revisions may have accelerated that timeline without realizing it. Right now, Aston Martin looks completely harmless. Last in the championship, nowhere near the points. Nobody is worried about them. That is exactly the moment when the most dangerous long-term projects in Formula One take root. The 2026 season is their foundation, not their ceiling. Whether it holds, whether Honda's optimization phase delivers what their development philosophy historically promises, that question does not get answered this year. It gets answered in 2027, and by then, it might be too late for anyone to do much about it. That is the story nobody is paying attention to right now. We are.